Welcome to our peaceful corner of the internet, where stories are here to help you drift off to a place of rest and calm. Tonight we invite you to settle down, let go of the day's worries, and sink into a soothing bedtime story crafted just for you. Each word, each scene is carefully designed to help your mind unwind, your body relax, and your thoughts slow down. So, find a comfortable position, take a deep breath, and let the story gently guide you to a restful night's sleep. Close your eyes, listen closely, and let tonight's journey begin. It was a quiet evening when Eleanor first heard about the mysterious market of magic. She was sitting in her favorite armchair by the window, watching the rain trickle down the glass, when a soft knock came at her door. It was a small, hooded figure, a child, perhaps, who handed her an old, crumpled piece of parchment without saying a word. By the time she looked up, the figure had vanished into the misty night. Curious, Eleanor unfolded the parchment, revealing a hand-drawn map with intricate details. The map showed a path winding through her city, but leading to a place she had never seen or heard of before. At the bottom, in elegant script, were the words, "Tonight only, the mysterious market of magic opens its doors to those who seek what cannot be found." Eleanor's heart raced. She had heard whispers of this market before, a legendary place that appeared only once every decade. They said it was a place where dreams were traded, where forgotten memories could be reclaimed, and where the most peculiar of items could be found. As a child, she used to imagine what it would be like, but she never thought she would see it herself. Despite the rain, Eleanor felt an unshakable urge to follow the map. She grabbed her coat and an umbrella, slipping the parchment into her pocket as she stepped outside. The city streets were almost empty, the glow of the streetlights reflecting off the wet pavement. She followed the directions carefully, turning down alleys she had never noticed before, and crossing bridges she didn't recall existing. It felt as if the city itself were reshaping to guide her. The air grew colder as she approached the final turn. There, tucked between two old brick buildings, was an archway she was certain had never been there before. Lanterns flickered in the mist, casting a warm, golden glow. She hesitated for a moment, taking a deep breath. Then, with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, she stepped through. On the other side of the archway, everything changed. The rain was gone, replaced by a soft, magical mist that clung to the cobblestones. The street was alive with colors, sounds, and scents unlike any Eleanor had ever experienced. Vendors called out to passing customers, their voices like musical notes dancing in the air. Stalls were filled with strange and wonderful objects, crystals that shimmered with a light of their own, bottles containing swirling clouds, and books that whispered secrets when opened. Eleanor's eyes widened as she took it all in. It was as if she had stepped into a different world, a place where time moved differently and where the impossible was commonplace. She wandered deeper into the market, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu, as if she had been here before in a forgotten dream. Her gaze was drawn to a small stall tucked away in a corner, lit by a single candle. The vendor, an old woman with a kind, knowing smile, beckoned her closer. The stall was filled with jars of golden liquid, each one labeled with a different emotion: joy, love, courage, peace. The old woman handed Eleanor a jar labeled curiosity. "You look like someone who needs a bit of this," the vendor said, her voice soft and melodic. "Go on, take it. It's a gift." Eleanor hesitated but took the jar. As soon as her fingers touched it, she felt a warmth spread through her body, a tingling sensation that filled her with a newfound sense of wonder and possibility. She looked up to thank the old woman, but the stall was empty, vanished as if it had never been there. Clutching the jar to her chest, Eleanor continued her exploration, feeling as though she were walking through a dream. She didn't know what she was searching for, but she had a feeling that the market would reveal it to her in its own time, and so her adventure in the mysterious market of magic began. The moon hung high over the enchanted forest, casting a silvery glow on the narrow cobblestone path that wound through the trees. It was the perfect night for a journey to the mysterious market, and Arya, a young woman with a heart full of curiosity, was about to embark on her second adventure there. She had barely returned from her first visit to the Market of Magic, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. The vibrant colors, the peculiar wares, the peculiar people. There was something about the market that called to her, a magic so deep it resonated with the very core of her being. And tonight she would return. As Arya walked down the familiar path, she felt the air shift. The rustling of the trees grew softer, the wind carrying a faint melody that seemed to whisper her name. She quickened her pace, knowing that the magic of the market was drawing near. The path began to glow faintly, a soft light emanating from the earth beneath her feet. She had only just stepped through the last cluster of trees when she saw it. The Market of Magic, a sprawling labyrinth of tents and stalls, lit with shimmering lanterns and filled with the fragrance of faraway spices and incense. The market was alive with activity. Figures moved quickly between the stalls, their cloaks and robes swishing with each step, their eyes glowing with secrets and knowledge. Arya's heart raced with excitement. This time she knew she wouldn't leave empty-handed. She had learned that the market was not a place for casual visitors. It revealed its treasures only to those who truly sought them. As she wandered deeper into the market, she noticed that many of the stalls seemed to be selling the same items as before, but with subtle differences. One stall still offered enchanted trinkets that shimmered in the moonlight, while another displayed potions in bottles shaped like dragons, their eyes glowing red. But there were also new sights, new wonders waiting to be discovered. Her eyes were drawn to a small stall tucked in the corner, its table cluttered with a strange assortment of objects. There were candles that flickered with different colored flames, mirrors that didn't reflect the world around them, and intricate boxes that seemed to hum with energy. Behind the stall stood a tall woman with silver hair, her face partially hidden by the hood of her cloak. She was busy arranging the items on the table, but when Arya stepped closer, the woman's eyes met hers. "Ah, I see you're looking for something more than what the market offers at first glance," the woman said, her voice soft and melodic, like the sound of wind chimes on a breezy day. "What is it that you seek, child?" Arya hesitated. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, only that she needed to find something that would help her understand the magic she had encountered during her first visit. She had sensed something, an untapped power within herself, something she couldn't quite explain. It was as though the market had awakened something dormant in her soul. "I'm not sure," Arya confessed, "but I feel as though there is something I need to learn, something important." The woman smiled, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Ah, you seek wisdom then?" "But wisdom cannot be bought, only earned. It is not an object you can hold in your hand, but a gift you will receive when you are ready to embrace it." Arya frowned, her thoughts swirling. "How do I become ready?" "That," the woman said with a twinkle in her eye, "is for you to discover. But I can offer you a token, a guide, to help you on your path." With a wave of her hand, the woman conjured a small, delicate pendant from the air. It shimmered with an ethereal glow, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as Arya looked at it. The pendant was unlike anything she had ever seen before, ancient yet timeless. It was as though it held the answers to all the questions that Arya had ever asked. "Take this," the woman said, placing the pendant gently in Arya's hand. "When you are lost, let it guide you. When you are in doubt, let it show you the way." Arya nodded, feeling a surge of warmth spread through her chest as she closed her fingers around the pendant. The woman's words echoed in her mind, but she didn't have time to think about them. A sudden burst of laughter interrupted her thoughts, and she turned to see a group of people gathered around a nearby stall. The air was filled with the sound of music, and colourful lights flickered in the distance. Without warning, the market seemed to shift. The stalls faded away, replaced by winding paths that led deeper into the heart of the market. Arya felt a strange pull, a magnetic force that seemed to call her forward. She didn't question it. She stepped into the new path, the pendant warm in her hand. As she walked, she realized that the market wasn't just a place, it was a journey. Each corner, each stall, was a chapter in a story that had only just begun. And tonight, Arya was taking the first step toward discovering the magic that was waiting for her. With each step, the path grew clearer, the air charged with an energy that made her feel alive, more awake than ever before. She had no idea where the journey would lead, but she knew one thing for certain. The market of magic had only just begun to reveal its secrets, and Arya was ready to uncover them all. The Mysterious Market of Magic, Episode 3. Arya's steps quickened as the path ahead grew more illuminated. The pendant in her hand glowed brighter with every step, casting a soft, ethereal light that made the shadows dance around her. She felt a pull, not just to the physical space she was walking through, but to something deeper within herself. The market was changing, transforming before her eyes, and it seemed to be responding to her presence. The winding path she had entered was unlike anything she had seen before. Instead of rows of bustling stalls, the air here was thick with a quiet, almost reverent stillness. Strange, ancient trees lined the way, their gnarled branches hanging low, adorned with shimmering lights that looked like stars. The very ground seemed to pulse with energy, as though the earth itself was alive with magic. She continued forward, drawn deeper into this hidden part of the market, feeling an odd sense of both peace and anticipation. It was as though she was stepping into a world where time itself bent and shifted, where the usual rules of reality no longer applied. Eventually she arrived at a clearing. In the center stood a small, circular pool, its surface like glass, reflecting the glow of the lights around it. The water within seemed impossibly still, yet, as Arya approached, ripples began to form, spreading outward in concentric circles. She knelt beside it, gazing into its depths, and for a moment she could have sworn she saw shapes moving beneath the surface, shadowy figures, fleeting and mysterious. "Don't be afraid," a voice echoed, so softly that it felt like the very air had spoken. Arya turned sharply, and standing before her was an old man, his long silver beard flowing down to his chest, his eyes a deep, knowing blue. His robes shimmered like the surface of the pool, shifting and changing in the light. He was tall and thin, but there was a calmness in his presence that seemed to steady her. "Who are you?" Arya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man smiled kindly. "I am a keeper of the deeper secrets of the market. My name is Alias, and I watch over the waters of wisdom." "The waters of wisdom?" Arya repeated, her curiosity piqued. Alias nodded, his gaze never leaving her. "Yes, these waters do not simply reflect the world around them. They show what lies beneath, the truths hidden from view, the paths not yet walked. But be warned, young one, the waters reveal only what the heart is ready to see." Arya glanced down at the pool again. The ripples had settled, and now the water was perfectly still once more. She could see her own reflection in the surface, but there was something different. Her face looked slightly altered, as if she were older, wiser, the weight of many experiences etched into her features. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't understand." "The market is not just a place of physical objects," Aelius said, stepping closer to the pool. "It is a mirror, reflecting your deepest desires, your hidden fears, and the magic that lives within you. You've felt it, haven't you? That stirring within your soul. You are here because you are ready to find your true path." Arya felt her heart beat faster. She had always known there was something more to her life, a force beyond the ordinary world she had known. But this was beyond anything she could have imagined. "I've seen the magic," she said, "but I don't understand it. How do I learn to control it? To understand it?" Aelius studied her for a long moment, his eyes seeming to peer right into her soul. Then he gestured to the water. "Look again, but this time, don't just see the surface. Let yourself feel what it shows you. Trust what you sense deep within." Arya hesitated, but then she leaned forward, allowing her reflection to blur with the ripples in the water. As she gazed into the depths, something began to shift. The water grew cloudy, swirling in patterns she couldn't quite make sense of. And then the image of a key formed, glowing faintly beneath the surface. A key? Arya's mind raced. What did it mean? "I see it," she whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. "A key? What does it unlock?" Aelius's voice was soft, almost like a song. "It is not a key to a door or a treasure chest. It is the key to your own understanding, to the magic that is already within you. The market has brought you here because you are ready to awaken that magic." Arya stared at the water, the key now clear in her mind. She reached out, but just as her fingers were about to touch the water's surface, a sudden gust of wind swept through the clearing. The lights in the trees flickered wildly, and the calmness of the pool was shattered. The image of the key vanished, replaced by a blur of colours and shadows. Aelius's face darkened. The path is not always easy. There are forces that seek to keep the magic hidden, to ensure that only those worthy can access it. "What do I do?" Arya asked, her voice urgent. "Trust yourself," Aelius replied, his tone growing serious. "The key is within you, but you must be brave enough to take hold of it. The market will test you. It will show you wonders, but it will also show you your deepest fears. It is your choice whether to follow the path it offers." Before Arya could ask more, the wind died down, and the clearing grew still again. Aelius was gone, leaving only the faint scent of the forest and the distant hum of the market behind. Arya stood there, feeling a strange sense of resolve fill her heart. The journey was far from over. She didn't know where it would lead, but she knew she couldn't turn back now. The magic was calling her, and this time she was ready to answer. With one final glance at the water, Arya turned and walked back toward the heart of the market, the pendant in her hand still glowing softly, a constant reminder that she was no longer just a visitor. She was part of the magic itself. Arya's steps echoed softly as she left the clearing behind, her senses heightened by the encounter with Aelius. The pendant around her neck pulsed with a quiet warmth, as if responding to the emotions coursing through her. She felt exhilarated, yet wary. Aelius's words lingered in her mind. The key is within you. But what did it mean? What path was she supposed to follow? The market, ever-changing and elusive, now seemed more alive than ever. The air was tinged with the scent of lavender and ancient wood smoke, and she could hear the soft murmurs of the crowd, drifting in and out like the whisper of leaves in the wind. As she wandered through the narrow alleys, the stalls became less familiar. It was as if the market had shifted, rearranging itself for her alone. Arya stopped in front of a curious tent that hadn't been there before. It was made of deep blue fabric, almost like the night sky, and tiny points of light seemed to twinkle across its surface, mimicking stars. The sign above the entrance read, "The Weaver of Threads." She felt a tug of curiosity and stepped inside. The interior of the tent was dimly lit, with strands of shimmering silver thread hanging from the ceiling, crisscrossing the space like the web of a giant spider. In the center of the tent sat an old woman hunched over a wooden loom. Her hair was white as moonlight, her fingers deftly weaving the threads into a fabric that seemed to shimmer with scenes from distant lands. Mountains wreathed in mist, rivers flowing under crimson sunsets, and faces of people Arya didn't recognize. "Welcome, traveler," the woman said without looking up. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of years, as though she had seen many lives come and go. "I am Selene, the Weaver of Threads. Sit with me." Arya lowered herself onto a cushion across from the loom, watching the woman's hands move with grace and precision. Each thread she wove seemed to vibrate with a life of its own, casting a soft, otherworldly glow. "What are you weaving?" Arya asked, captivated by the shifting images in the fabric. Selene paused, her eyes meeting Arya's. They were a piercing silver, reflecting the light of the threads. "I weave the threads of fate, child. The stories of those who come to this market, the choices they make, the paths they walk. Each thread represents a life, and the weave is constantly changing." Arya shivered, feeling a strange sense of déjà vu. "Can you see my thread?" she asked. Selene smiled, a knowing look in her eyes. "I can. Your thread is different, though. It shimmers with a light I haven't seen in many years. The market has taken a special interest in you." Arya's breath caught. "Why me?" "Because you are on the brink of a great discovery," Selene said softly. "You are not just a visitor to this market. You are part of its fabric, intertwined with its magic. But the path you are on is not an easy one. There are choices ahead, choices that will determine not just your fate, but the fate of those around you." Selene gestured to the loom, and the fabric shifted, revealing an image of Arya standing at a crossroads. One path was lit with golden light, the other shrouded in shadow. In her hand, Arya held the glowing pendant, its light flickering like a candle in the wind. "You will face a choice," Selene continued. "One path leads to understanding and wisdom, the other to power and control. Both hold great magic, but they are very different kinds of magic, and only you can decide which one you will seek." Arya stared at the image, her mind racing. The idea of power was alluring, control over the magic she had felt growing within her, the ability to shape her own destiny. But the thought of understanding, of discovering the deeper truths of this strange, magical world, called to her as well. "How do I know which path to choose?" she asked, her voice small. Selene's eyes softened. "You already know deep down. Listen to your heart, not your fears. The market reflects what you hold inside. Trust yourself, and the answer will come." Arya closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. She felt the warmth of the pendant against her chest, the rhythm of its pulse matching the beat of her own heart. She let her thoughts quiet, focusing only on that steady, calming sensation. And in the silence, she heard it, a soft whisper, like the murmur of the wind through the trees. "Seek understanding." When she opened her eyes, the image on the fabric had changed. It now showed a small, ornate door, half hidden by ivy, with a keyhole that looked like it would fit the pendant she wore. Selene nodded approvingly. "You have chosen wisely. The door you seek lies beyond the heart of the market, in a place where few venture. It is a doorway not just to another part of the market, but to the deeper truths you seek." Arya rose to her feet, her resolve strengthening. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. "Remember," Celine called after her as she turned to leave, "the market will test you, but it will also guide you. Trust the magic, and it will lead you where you need to go." Arya stepped out of the tent, blinking in the sudden brightness of the market. The crowd seemed to part before her, as if sensing her newfound purpose. She moved quickly, following the pull of the pendant, deeper into the labyrinth of stalls and winding paths. As she walked, the sounds of the market faded, replaced by a soft, melodic humming. The air grew cooler, the light dimmer. The vibrant colours of the market gave way to softer, muted tones, and the path beneath her feet turned from cobblestones to a soft, mossy earth. Finally, she found herself standing before a small, ivy-covered door, just like the one she had seen on Celine's loom. It was almost hidden, as if the market itself were trying to conceal it from view. Arya's hand shook slightly as she lifted the pendant and pressed it into the keyhole. There was a soft click, and the door swung open silently, revealing a dark, narrow passageway beyond. She took a deep breath, stepping forward into the darkness. The pendant flared brightly for a moment, casting a warm light around her, and then the door closed softly behind her. Whatever lay beyond, she was ready to face it. The market had led her here, and she knew that the answers she sought were just ahead, waiting to be uncovered. Arya stepped through the doorway, the soft click of the closing door echoing behind her. She was immediately enveloped by darkness, a thick and velvety blackness that seemed to swallow all sound. Her heart raced, but she held the pendant tightly, feeling its comforting warmth in her palm. The glow from the pendant cast a small circle of light around her, just enough to illuminate the narrow, winding corridor that stretched ahead. The air was cool and carried a faint scent of wet earth and something else, something she couldn't quite place, like the smell of rain on ancient stones. Her footsteps were muffled as she moved deeper into the passage, and she realized that the ground beneath her was no longer mossy, but smooth and polished like marble. The silence was heavy, almost oppressive, but it wasn't empty. It felt as if the very walls were alive, humming with a low, steady vibration. It reminded her of the sound she had heard in the heart of the market, a melodic hum that resonated deep within her chest. After what felt like hours but could have been mere minutes, the corridor opened into a vast cavern. Arya's breath caught in her throat. The space was enormous, with a domed ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. The walls were lined with what looked like enormous crystal formations, each one glowing softly in a myriad of colors. Blues, purples, and greens that shifted and pulsed like the heartbeat of the earth itself. In the center of the cavern was a stone pedestal, and on it lay a large, ancient-looking book bound in dark leather. The cover was embossed with a symbol she recognized, the same pattern etched into her pendant. The air around the book seemed to shimmer, as if it were charged with a powerful, invisible energy. Arya approached slowly, her eyes locked on the book. She could feel the pull of it, like a magnetic force drawing her closer. The pendant around her neck began to glow brighter, resonating with the energy in the cavern. Just as she reached out to touch the book, a soft voice broke the silence. "Not so fast, young seeker." Arya spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. Standing in the shadows at the edge of the cavern was a figure cloaked in dark, shimmering robes. The figure stepped forward, revealing a man with sharp, angular features and eyes that glinted like shards of ice. He was tall and thin, his movements fluid and graceful, like a cat stalking its prey. "Who are you?" Arya demanded, taking a step back. Her hand still hovered near the book, but she didn't dare touch it. The man's lips curled into a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Lucien," he said, his voice smooth and silky. "I am the guardian of this place, the keeper of knowledge, and you, it seems, have come seeking answers." Arya nodded slowly. "Yes, I want to understand the magic. I want to know why I was drawn here, what it all means." Lucien's smile widened, but there was something cold and calculating behind it. He moved closer, circling the pedestal as he spoke. "Ah, but knowledge is a dangerous thing, Arya. It is not simply a gift, but a burden. You say you want understanding, but do you realize what that truly entails? To know the magic is to know its cost." Arya swallowed hard, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm not afraid of the cost. I've felt this magic inside me, and I need to know what it is." Lucien stopped, fixing her with his piercing gaze. "Very well," he said softly. "But know this. Once you open the book, there is no turning back. The knowledge you seek will change you forever. Are you certain you are ready for that?" Arya hesitated. The pendant around her neck throbbed with warmth, as if urging her forward. She thought of Selena's words, of the key being within her, of the choice she had already made. She had come this far, faced her doubts and fears. She couldn't turn back now. "I'm ready," she said, her voice filled with resolve. Lucien nodded slowly, almost as if he had expected her answer. "Very well," he said, stepping aside with a graceful sweep of his arm. "The book is yours to open." Arya took a deep breath and reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool, worn leather of the cover. The moment she touched it, a surge of energy shot through her, like lightning coursing through her veins. The book seemed to pulse under her hand, vibrating with a power that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She opened the book slowly, the ancient pages crackling as they turned. The writing inside was not in any language she recognized. It was a swirling, flowing script that seemed to shift and change as she looked at it. But as she stared at the words, something incredible happened. The script began to rearrange itself, forming words she could understand. "This is the Book of Echoes," it read. "The record of all magic, past, present, and future. It holds the memories of the market, the secrets of its creation, and the power to unlock the magic within you." Arya felt a rush of emotion, awe, fear, excitement, all mingling together. She turned the page and an image appeared, as vivid as a painting. It was a scene from her own life, the moment she had first entered the market of magic. She saw herself standing there, wide-eyed and filled with wonder, and she realized that the book was showing her not just her past, but her journey through the market, every step that had led her to this moment. "What is this?" she whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "It is your story," Lucien said, his voice softer now, almost gentle. "The market has chosen you, Arya. It sees the magic within you, the potential to become something greater than you have ever imagined. But you must make a choice. Will you embrace this magic, accept its burden and its gift? Or will you close the book and leave, forever untouched by what you could become?" Arya's heart pounded in her chest. The answer was clear to her now, as clear as the pendant's light against her skin. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and when she opened them, she met Lucien's gaze. "I choose to embrace it," she said firmly. "I choose to understand, no matter the cost." Lucien's smile softened, and for the first time it seemed genuine. He bowed his head slightly. "Then the market welcomes you, Arya. You are no longer a visitor. You are a seeker, one of us." The crystals lining the cavern flared with light, casting rainbows across the walls. The hum of the market grew louder, a symphony of magic and possibility, as if the very fabric of the place was singing in celebration. Arya closed the book, feeling its weight in her hands, but also the lightness in her heart. She had found the answer she sought, but she knew this was only the beginning. With a nod to Lucienne, she turned and walked back toward the narrow corridor, ready to face whatever lay ahead. She was no longer lost. She had found her path, and she was ready for the journey to come. Arya stepped back into the narrow corridor, the ancient book clutched tightly to her chest. The passage seemed different now, as if the very air had shifted, lightened somehow. The pendant around her neck glowed with a steady, comforting warmth, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. She felt an exhilarating mix of fear and excitement. She had chosen her path, and there was no turning back. As she moved through the winding tunnel, the soft humming sound grew louder, no longer a distant murmur but a melodic chant that vibrated through the stone walls. It was as if the market itself was welcoming her, celebrating her choice. The corridor opened into a new part of the market, one she had never seen before. It was a vast, open space filled with towering archways and shimmering lights, like a cathedral made of pure magic. Around her, the air sparkled with motes of light, and she realized they were tiny, translucent creatures, flitting about like enchanted fireflies. They circled her, leaving trails of luminescence in their wake. The scene was dreamlike, almost otherworldly, and Arya felt a deep sense of calm wash over her. In the center of the grand hall stood a fountain, its water flowing upward in a spiral defying gravity. The liquid shimmered with iridescent colors, shifting from deep blue to vibrant gold as it twisted into the air. Around the base of the fountain, there were stone benches, and sitting on one of them was a familiar figure, Selene, the weaver of threads. Selene looked up, her silver eyes catching the light, and smiled warmly. "You made your choice?" she said, her voice filled with a soft pride. "I knew you would." Arya approached, feeling a wave of relief at the sight of the old woman. "Selene," she breathed, "I opened the book. It showed me my past, my journey through the market, and it spoke of the magic within me." Selene nodded, rising gracefully from the bench. "The Book of Echoes reveals the truth to those who are ready to see it. But it only shows a glimpse, Arya. The real journey begins now. You have unlocked the first door, but there are many more mysteries waiting for you." Arya glanced down at the book in her hands, feeling its weight once more. "What do I do next? How do I learn to control this magic?" "By listening," Selene replied, placing a gentle hand on Arya's shoulder. "The market will guide you. It always has. But there is someone you need to meet first. Someone who has been waiting for you." Arya frowned. "Who?" Before Selene could answer, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The shimmering creatures darted away, and the humming sound intensified, growing deeper, more urgent. The water in the fountain surged, cascading in all directions as if disturbed by an unseen force. Selene's expression darkened, and she turned to face the far end of the hall. "He's here." Arya followed her gaze and saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was Lucienne, but he looked different. His robes, once shimmering and dark, were now tinged with a dull, ashen color, and his eyes no longer glinted like shards of ice. Instead, they were clouded, filled with a strange, hollow emptiness. "Lucienne?" Arya asked, her voice trembling. "What's happening?" Lucienne's smile was a twisted version of what it had been before, and it sent a chill down her spine. "Did you really think it would be so simple?" he hissed. "The market's magic is powerful, yes, but it is also dangerous. You have barely scratched the surface of what it can do, and already you think you can control it?" Selene stepped forward, her stance protective. "Lucienne, this isn't you. You are being influenced by something dark." Lucienne laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "You always were naive, Selene. The market is not a benevolent force. It is a living entity, filled with magic both light and dark. And the darkness, well, it has chosen me." Arya's heart pounded. The air around Lucien seemed to ripple, dark shadows curling around his form like smoke. The warmth of the pendant turned cold against her skin, and she instinctively took a step back. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice sharper now, laced with a courage she hadn't felt before. "I want what the market wants," Lucien replied, his eyes narrowing. "I want its secrets, its power. But the magic is unpredictable. It chose you, Arya, for reasons I cannot see, so now I will take it from you." Celene's hands began to glow with a soft silver light, threads of magic weaving between her fingers. "You will not harm her, Lucien. I won't allow it." Lucien's smile faded, replaced by a look of pure rage. "Foolish old woman," he spat. With a flick of his wrist, the shadows around him surged forward, lashing out like black tendrils. Arya felt a rush of adrenaline, her fear melting into a fierce determination. She opened the book, its pages fluttering wildly as if caught in a strong wind. The words on the page glowed with a bright, golden light, and she felt the magic surging up through her, as if the book itself were channeling the power into her body. The pendant on her neck blazed with light, and she raised her hand, focusing all her energy on the dark tendrils moving toward Selene. The light shot out from her palm, a beam of pure, radiant energy that collided with the shadows, disintegrating them in an instant. Lucien staggered back, a look of shock and fury on his face. "No!" he screamed, his voice echoing through the hall. "This isn't over!" Before Arya could respond, Lucien vanished, dissolving into a cloud of dark smoke that was quickly swept away by an unseen wind. The tremors subsided, and the hall fell silent once more. The shimmering creatures returned, cautiously flitting around Arya and Selene. The fountain's water settled, its iridescent colors slowly returning. Selene lowered her hands, the glow fading from her fingers. She looked at Arya with a mixture of relief and sorrow. "You did well," she said quietly, "but this is only the beginning. The darkness within the market is stronger than I realized. Lucien was corrupted by it, but he was just the beginning." Arya closed the book, her hands shaking slightly. "What does it want?" "The market is ancient," Selene replied. "Its magic is like a river, constantly flowing, shaping everything it touches. But sometimes the current becomes tainted. There are forces here that seek to bend the magic to their own will, to control what should remain free." Arya took a deep breath, the realization sinking in. "Then I have to stop it. I have to find a way to cleanse the magic." Selene nodded, her expression solemn. "Yes, but you won't be alone. There are others like you, seekers who have chosen the path of understanding. Together you may stand a chance." Arya squared her shoulders, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She had faced her first test and come out stronger. Now she was ready for whatever lay ahead. With Selene by her side, she stepped forward, deeper into the heart of the market, ready to uncover its secrets and face the darkness lurking within. Arya and Selene moved deeper into the market, the vast hall behind them fading into shadow as they descended a spiral staircase of gleaming obsidian. The air was thick with magic, humming with a low, resonant sound that vibrated through Arya's bones. Her pendant pulsed in time with the rhythm, casting a soft, golden glow that lit their way. "The market seems to be shifting again," Arya remarked, glancing over at Selene. "It's like it's responding to us, reacting to what happened with Lucien." Selene nodded, her expression pensive. "The market is alive in its own way. It changes with the flow of magic, adjusting to the intentions of those who walk its paths. But the darkness you faced is a sign that something deeper is at play. The balance of the market is tipping, and we must set it right." The staircase opened into a new chamber, unlike anything Arya had seen before. It was a circular room with high, vaulted ceilings, the walls lined with mirrors of all shapes and sizes. Each mirror was unique, reflecting not only Arya's face but scenes from other places. Forests shrouded in mist, starry night skies, bustling cities filled with unfamiliar people. The reflections seemed to shimmer and pulse as if they were windows into different worlds. "What is this place?" Arya asked, her voice filled with awe. "This is the Hall of Reflections," Selene explained. "It is a crossroads of sorts, where the boundaries between realities are thin. Each mirror shows a different fragment of the market's many layers, and sometimes they show us glimpses of what is yet to come." Arya moved closer to one of the larger mirrors, a tall, ornate frame carved with intricate runes. The glass was dark at first, but as she stared into it, an image began to take shape. She saw herself standing in a forest, the moonlight filtering through the trees. In her hand, she held a staff of twisted wood, its tip glowing with a bright, ethereal light. Selene stepped up beside her, studying the reflection. "The market's trying to tell you something," she said softly. "A vision of your future, perhaps, or a warning." Arya felt a shiver run down her spine. "What does it mean?" "The staff," Selene said, pointing to the object in the reflection. "It's a symbol of power, of a guide on your journey. It may be an artifact you need to find, or it could represent the magic you must learn to wield. Either way, the market is showing you a path forward." Before Arya could respond, a sharp, cracking sound echoed through the chamber. One of the smaller mirrors shattered, the glass splintering outward like a spiderweb. The air grew cold, and the light from her pendant flickered. Selene's eyes widened with alarm. "Something is coming!" The shadows at the edge of the room twisted and coalesced, forming into a tall, cloaked figure. It was Lucien, but he looked more twisted than before, his face gaunt and pale, his eyes dark pits filled with swirling black smoke. "You cannot hide from me, Arya," he snarled, his voice a rasping whisper that seemed to come from all directions at once. "You think you can cleanse the market, restore its balance? You are a fool." Arya's fear was palpable, but she stood her ground, the pendant flaring with light. "I'm not afraid of you, Lucien. I know now what I have to do. You are just a shadow, a distortion of what the market's magic is meant to be." Lucien's laugh was sharp and bitter. "You still don't understand," he hissed. "The market's magic is neither good nor evil. It is power, pure and unbridled, and I have learned to control it. You have only scratched the surface." With a swift motion, Lucien raised his hand, and tendrils of dark magic shot toward Arya like black lightning. Selene stepped in front of her, weaving a protective shield of silver threads that absorbed the impact, sending sparks flying across the room. "Go, Arya," Selene shouted, her voice strained. "Find the staff. It's the key to countering his dark magic." Arya hesitated for a split second, torn between staying to help Selene and heeding her words. The mirrors around her flashed with images, herself running through the forest, the staff glowing brighter, Lucien's shadow looming behind her. The market was guiding her, pushing her toward the path she needed to take. Trusting the vision, she turned and sprinted out of the chamber, the sound of crackling magic and Selene's shouts echoing behind her. The corridor twisted and turned, and she felt the market shifting around her, guiding her steps even as it seemed to reshape itself with every stride. She burst out into a clearing, her breath catching in the cool night air. Above her, the moon hung low and full, casting a silvery light over the scene. The forest was dense, the trees towering high, their branches twisting together like a woven canopy. In the center of the clearing, half buried in the earth, was the staff from the mirror's vision. Arya didn't hesitate. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees and wrapping her fingers around the smooth, twisted wood. The moment she touched it, she felt a surge of power unlike anything she had ever experienced. The staff responded to her touch, the tip flaring with a bright blue-white light that cut through the darkness like a blade. Lucien's shadowy form materialized at the edge of the clearing, his eyes wide with fury. "No!" he screamed, the sound echoing through the forest. "You cannot wield that power!" But Arya felt different now, stronger, more confident. The staff was like an extension of her own magic, amplifying it, focusing it. She rose to her feet, lifting the staff high, the light growing even brighter, casting long, sharp shadows across the ground. "You're wrong, Lucien," she said, her voice ringing with newfound authority. "This magic isn't about control. It's about harmony, about understanding and connection. You've twisted it, but I can still set it right." With a sweeping motion, she brought the staff down, and a wave of light erupted from its tip, surging toward Lucien. He raised his arms, trying to shield himself, but the light pierced through his shadowy form, unraveling the dark magic that clung to him. Lucien screamed, a sound of pure agony, as the shadows dissolved into the night air. His figure crumpled, falling to the ground like a discarded cloak, and then he was gone, leaving nothing but a faint wisp of smoke behind. The clearing fell silent, the light from the staff dimming as Arya lowered it. She felt a strange sense of peace wash over her, a deep, satisfying calm. The market had guided her here, given her the tools she needed, and she had faced the darkness within it. Behind her, Selena emerged from the shadows, looking tired but unhurt. She smiled, her eyes filled with pride. "You did it, Arya. You found the balance." Arya nodded, gripping the staff tightly. "This is just the beginning, isn't it?" "Yes," Selene agreed, "but you are ready now. The market has chosen you not just as a seeker, but as a guardian. And together we will restore its magic." Arya took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the staff and the responsibility it represented. But she wasn't afraid anymore. She knew her path, and she was ready to walk it. Hand in hand with Selene, she stepped back into the forest, the light of the moon guiding their way. Arya and Selene walked side by side, the forest around them teeming with the soft, whispering sounds of unseen creatures. The path ahead was dappled with moonlight, the twisted branches above forming an intricate lattice that cast shifting patterns on the ground. Arya felt the power of the staff thrumming in her hand, a steady, comforting beat that matched her heartbeat. She couldn't help but wonder if the market itself was alive, guiding her through its hidden layers. "What happens now?" Arya asked, glancing over at Selene. "Lucien is gone, but I can still feel the darkness lingering. It's like a shadow that won't fade." Selene's silver eyes softened with a hint of sorrow. The market's darkness wasn't just Lucien's doing. It's deeper than that, a corruption that seeped into the roots of the market's magic. You've started the process of cleansing it, but there is much more to do. And there's someone you must meet, someone who holds the next piece of this puzzle. Arya raised an eyebrow, curiosity sparking in her chest. "Another guide?" "Not quite," Selene replied with a mysterious smile. "The market has its own ways of choosing allies. This time it's sending you to someone who understands its wild, untamed side." They walked for what felt like hours deeper into the forest until the trees opened up to reveal a hidden glade. At its center, a large, ancient tree stood tall, its bark glowing faintly with a deep, golden hue. The air was filled with a sweet, earthy scent, and Arya could hear the gentle buzz of insects, the rustle of leaves in a breeze that didn't quite touch her skin. As they approached the tree, a figure stepped out from behind it. It was a woman, tall and lithe, with hair the color of autumn leaves cascading down her back in wild, tangled curls. Her eyes were a vibrant green, sparkling with a mischievous light. She wore a flowing robe made of leaves and vines, and her bare feet barely touched the ground. "Ah, the Guardian and the Weaver," the woman said, her voice musical and airy. "I've been expecting you. The market whispered your names long before you arrived." Selene inclined her head in greeting. "Arya, this is Nessa, the keeper of the wild magic." Nessa stepped closer, studying Arya with an intensity that made her feel like a bird pinned under a hawk's gaze. "So, you're the one who stood against the dark currents?" she murmured. "You've stirred the waters, little guardian. I hope you're ready for what comes next." Arya felt a shiver of anticipation. "I'm ready, but I need to understand what I'm up against. The darkness I felt, it's like it's part of the market itself." Nessa nodded, her expression turning serious. "You're right. The market's magic is ancient and vast, older than the stone streets and stalls you've seen. It's a living entity, a tapestry woven from the threads of countless worlds and times, but it has always had a wild heart, a core of untamed energy. Over time, as more seekers came seeking control, that wildness was suppressed. The darkness is a manifestation of that imbalance, a backlash from the magic that wants to be free." Arya tightened her grip on the staff. "So, how do we restore the balance?" "By releasing the wild magic," Nessa replied, "But it's not a simple task. You can't just command it to behave. You must earn its trust, prove that you understand its nature, and there is a trial you must face first." Selene's face darkened with concern. "The trial of roots?" Nessa gave a solemn nod. "Yes, it's the only way forward. If Arya passes, she will be granted the wild magic's blessing. If she fails, the darkness will consume her." A tense silence fell over the glade, the air heavy with the weight of Nessa's words. Arya felt the chill of fear snake down her spine, but she pushed it aside. She had come too far to turn back now. "I accept the trial," Arya said firmly, her voice steady. "Tell me what I need to do." Nessa's lips curled into a small, approving smile. "Brave, as I hoped you would be. The trial is simple in theory. You must enter the heart of the ancient tree and find the wild core, a gem that pulses with the pure, untamed magic of the market. If you can touch it without being overwhelmed by its power, you will prove your worth." Selene squeezed Arya's hand. "I wish I could go with you, but this is something you must face alone. Remember everything you've learned and trust your instincts." Arya took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the energy of the ancient tree wrap around her like a warm electric current. The bark parted before her, revealing a narrow entrance that seemed to pulse with light. She glanced back at Selene and Nessa one last time, then stepped inside. The interior of the tree was unlike anything she had expected. It was vast, a cavern filled with shimmering golden light that flowed like liquid honey. The walls were lined with intricate patterns of roots, twisting and curling around each other, forming a labyrinthine maze. The air buzzed with raw, unfiltered magic, crackling with an almost tangible energy. Arya moved cautiously, the staff glowing brighter in her hand, guiding her through the twisting passages. The deeper she went, the stronger the pull of the wild core became, a magnetic force that tugged at her very soul. Finally, she entered a circular chamber at the heart of the tree. In the center, floating above a bed of twisting roots, was the wild core. It was a gem unlike any she had ever seen, shifting colors that danced like fire, water and wind all at once. The power radiating from it was overwhelming, almost suffocating. Arya took a step closer, feeling the magic pressing against her, testing her resolve. She closed her eyes, centering herself, reaching deep into the well of her own magic. She felt the wild, chaotic energy of the core trying to consume her, to pull her under like a riptide. But she didn't fight it. Instead, she opened herself up, letting the magic flow through her, around her, becoming a part of her. It felt like dancing on the edge of a storm, exhilarating and terrifying all at once. She focused on the balance she had learned, the harmony between the light and the dark. Slowly she reached out and touched the gem. The moment her fingers made contact, a blinding light filled the chamber, and she felt the wild magic surge into her, filling every corner of her being. For a moment, there was nothing but light and the sound of her own heartbeat. Then the light faded, and she was standing in the chamber once more, the wild core pulsing gently in her hand. She had done it. She had passed the trial. When she stepped back into the glade, Selena and Nessa were waiting. Nessa's smile was radiant, and Celine's eyes shone with tears of joy. "You did it," Celine whispered, embracing Arya. Nessa nodded, her expression filled with pride. "You've earned the wild magic's trust, Arya. You are truly the guardian now." Arya felt the power of the wild core settling inside her, like a flame that would never be extinguished. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was no longer afraid. With the wild magic at her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. The night air was crisp as Arya, Celine, and Nessa stood in the glade, bathed in the silver light of the moon. The wild core nestled in Arya's palm felt warm, a tiny sun pulsing with an ancient and untamed energy. For a moment, everything was still, as if the very breath of the market had paused to witness this pivotal moment. "You've passed the trial of roots," Nessa said, her voice tinged with a mix of relief and awe. "The wild core's power flows through you now, Arya, but this is only the beginning. The true challenge lies ahead." Arya looked at the gem, its colors shifting and swirling like liquid fire. "I can feel it," she murmured. "It's like the magic is alive, singing to me, but it's also unsettled. There's a tension, like a cord stretched too tight." Selena nodded, stepping closer. "The darkness that corrupted the market isn't just gone because Lucienne was defeated. It's been dispersed, scattered through the deeper layers of the market. The wild core is guiding you now, but it will take us to places even I have never seen." Nessa's eyes darkened, the mischievous light in them dimming. "There are parts of the market that were long forgotten, sealed away when the first Guardians realized they couldn't control its wild magic. The corruption may have seeped into those hidden places. We need to go there, find the source, and confront whatever is left behind." Arya felt a flutter of fear, but she pushed it down. "Then we should go now. I don't want the darkness to spread any further." Nessa gave her a sharp, approving nod. "Very well. The path will open when you are ready. Trust the wild core, it will guide you." As if responding to Nessa's words, the ground beneath Arya's feet shifted. The roots of the ancient tree twisted and parted, revealing a stone archway that had not been there moments before. The archway was covered in glowing runes, their light pulsating with the same rhythm as the wild core. Arya took a deep breath and stepped through, Selena and Nessa following close behind. The other side of the archway was like stepping into another world. The air was colder here, filled with a faint mist that swirled around their ankles. They were standing on the edge of a vast underground lake, its surface as smooth and black as polished obsidian. The water reflected the ceiling above, which was covered in thousands of tiny, glowing fungi, casting a soft, bluish light. "This place Celine whispered, her voice tinged with wonder. "I've only heard stories about it. It's the Mirror Lake, where the market's most ancient memories are stored. It reflects not just what is, but what has been and what might be." Arya knelt by the edge of the lake, peering into the dark, still water. As she watched, the surface rippled, and an image began to form. She saw herself, much younger, standing in her childhood home, her mother's laughter echoing in the background. The scene shifted, showing her first encounter with Selene in the market's bustling streets. And then it dissolved into a vision of the future, Arya standing alone in a field of silver flowers, the wild core glowing brightly in her hand. "What is it showing me?" Arya asked, her voice trembling. Nessa crouched beside her, dipping a finger into the water. "The lake reflects your heart, your hopes and fears. It's trying to tell you something, but only you can interpret it." Before Arya could respond, the water rippled violently and the images vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex of darkness. A shape emerged from the depths, a figure shrouded in shadows, with eyes like burning coals. It was a presence more sinister than Lucienne, a manifestation of the market's corrupted magic. "You've come far, little guardian," the figure hissed, its voice like the rustling of dry leaves. "But you cannot cleanse what has already taken root. The darkness is part of the market now, and it will consume everything." Arya felt a wave of fear crash over her, but she stood her ground. "You're wrong," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "The market's magic isn't yours to twist and corrupt. I've seen its true heart, and I know what it's meant to be." The figure laughed, a hollow, echoing sound. "Then prove it. Face the depths of the market's past and see if your light can survive its shadows." Without warning, the figure lunged forward, its shadowy form merging with the water of the lake. The entire surface began to churn, dark tendrils rising up and lashing out at Arya, trying to drag her under. Selene raised her hands, weaving a barrier of silver light, but the shadows struck hard, cracking the shield like glass. Nessa sprang into action, her hands moving in a blur as she called forth the wild magic, vines and roots surging up from the ground to hold back the darkness. "Arya now!" Nessa shouted. "Use the wild core!" Arya took a deep breath, focusing all her energy into the staff. The wild core flared with light, the gem vibrating in her hand. She thrust it forward, sending a beam of pure, untamed magic into the lake. The water hissed and steamed as the light cut through the darkness, parting it like a knife through cloth. The shadowy figure screeched, its form dissolving into wisps of smoke. But even as it faded, the voice echoed around them, low and ominous. "You may have won this battle, but the corruption runs deeper than you know. It is bound to the very roots of the market. You cannot save it." As the last of the shadow disappeared, the lake stilled once more, the surface turning clear and calm. The image that reflected back at Arya now was of herself, standing tall, the staff glowing in her hand. She felt a strange, serene calm wash over her, as if the lake itself was offering her its blessing. Selene let out a shaky breath, lowering her hands. "It's not over yet, Arya, but you've weakened it. We're closer now than we've ever been." Nessa placed a hand on Arya's shoulder, her smile returning, though it was tinged with sadness. "You've proven your strength, little guardian. The wild magic accepts you, but the final confrontation is coming, and it will test every ounce of your resolve." Arya nodded, her heart steady. "I'm ready for whatever comes next," she said, looking at the reflection of herself in the water. It felt like a promise,
not just to herself, but to the market, to Selena, and to the magic that had chosen her. Together, the three of them turned and left the Mirror Lake, stepping back into the twisting paths of the market. The way forward was uncertain, but Arya knew one thing for sure. She would fight for the magic, for the light and the dark, for the balance that held the market's heart. And she would not rest until the corruption was cleansed once and for all.
Arya, Selene, and Nessa moved through the market's ancient corridors, a trio of determined figures against a backdrop of shifting shadows and flickering lights. The once bustling market felt different now, quieter, as if holding its breath, sensing the final confrontation was near. "We're almost there," Selene whispered, her silver eyes flicking back to Arya. "The heart of the market is just beyond that gate. It's where the magic is purest, and where the darkness has taken its deepest root." Arya felt the wild core warm in her hand, a gentle pulse of encouragement. She had come so far from her first hesitant steps into the market to now standing at the threshold of its very heart. The staff in her grip thrummed with power, and she knew that whatever happened next, this was where it would end. Nessa approached the gate, a large stone arch covered in intricate carvings. She placed her hands on it, murmuring a chant in a language Arya couldn't understand. Slowly, the stone parted, revealing a vast chamber bathed in golden light. At the center was a tree unlike any Arya had seen. Its bark was silver, its leaves shimmering with a rainbow of colors, the roots twisted deep into the ground, and at their base, a dark, seeping shadow coiled, pulsing like a heartbeat. "The corruption," Selene said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's feeding off the market's very essence." Arya stepped forward, her eyes locked on the shadow. It twisted and writhed, as if sensing her presence. A face formed in the darkness, hollow eyes filled with malice. "You again," the corruption hissed. "You think you can cleanse this place? Foolish guardian, you do not understand the depth of what you face." Arya lifted the staff, the wild core blazing with light. "I don't need to understand everything," she said calmly. "I just need to believe in the magic of this place, the light and the dark. They were never meant to be separate. They need balance." With a sudden roar, the corruption lunged at her, shadowy tendrils reaching out like claws. Arya braced herself, channeling the power of the wild core. The light surged forward, meeting the darkness head-on. The clash of energies sent a shock-wave through the chamber, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Nessa and Selene joined her, weaving their own magic into the fray. Silver light from Selene, wild, chaotic vines from Nessa. Together, their magic intertwined with the wild core's power, forming a barrier of pure, radiant energy. "You cannot defeat me," the corruption screeched, its form flickering and shifting. "I am a part of this place, a shadow that will never fade." Arya took a deep breath, centering herself. She thought of everything she had learned on her journey, the balance between light and dark, the untamed wildness of the market, the ancient magic that ran through its veins like blood. She knew what she had to do. Instead of pushing the darkness away, she lowered her staff, letting the light dim slightly. The corruption paused, its form wavering as if confused. "What are you doing?" it spat. "You cannot surrender now." "I'm not surrendering," Arya said softly. "I'm embracing you. The darkness is part of the market, just as the light is. It's the imbalance that caused the corruption, not the existence of the dark itself." She stepped closer, her heart pounding but her resolve steady. With one final deep breath, she extended her hand, not to strike, but to touch the shadow. The moment her fingers made contact, the chamber was filled with a blinding flash of light, The darkness shuddered, then began to dissolve, not in pain, but in a slow, peaceful unraveling. The shadow melted away, sinking into the roots of the tree and dispersing like smoke in the wind. The silver-barked tree pulsed with a new, vibrant energy, its leaves shimmering even brighter. The air felt lighter, the oppressive weight of the corruption gone. Arya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, her body sagging with exhaustion. "You did it," Selene said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've restored the balance." Nessa grinned, her wild hair catching the golden light. "Not just restored it, she's redefined it. The market feels different now, freer." Arya looked at the wild core, the gem now glowing softly, peacefully. She knew its journey with her was coming to an end. The core had chosen her, but its place was here, at the heart of the market, where it could continue to nurture the balance she had fought so hard to restore. Slowly, reverently, Arya placed the wild core at the base of the tree. The roots curled around it, cradling it gently, as if welcoming it home. "What happens now?" Arya asked, turning to Selene and Nessa. Nessa tilted her head, a playful smile on her lips. "That's up to you, little guardian. The market is whole again, but it will need a new keeper, someone who understands the balance between the wild and the calm." Selene stepped forward, taking Arya's hands in her own. "You've been chosen, Arya. The market's magic is yours to guide if you wish it." Arya felt the weight of the decision settle over her. It was a chance to stay, to become part of the market's magic, to continue weaving its tapestry. But it was also a choice to leave behind everything she once knew. She looked around the chamber, at the shimmering tree, at the friends she had made, and at the market that had become a part of her very soul. "Do I stay?" she asked softly, "or do I return to the life I once knew?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the light of the wild core flickered gently, casting shifting shadows on the walls. And in that moment, the market seemed to smile, as if knowing the answer was hers to discover, and hers alone. The end, or perhaps the beginning? What would you choose, dear listener? Would you stay in the magical world of the market, or return to the life you once knew?